Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the There Is a Floodlight That Never Goes Out podcast. As ever, I'm joined by Will and Tom. How are we, guys?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Ed.
Good news. And, we're going to be reacting to what I think we can all describe as a victory for the sport of football, and that is the collapse of any proposals for a European Super League. Tom, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Initial thoughts when I saw the news come in on Tuesday night was just one of relief, really. I honestly, I spoke about it on two podcasts, one on their only podcast only and one on YouTube, but it was literally, it felt like the game was being taken from me and everything that I put my life into, and then you get told it's not happening and Ed Woodward's resigned and it's the most euphoric feeling in the world. But then the inner cynics sort of in me, and obviously I can get onto that later in the podcast about the cynicism. But yeah, at first I think I'm just very relieved at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. Will?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Tom's words, but I think for me it was more. I did believe that, if fans showed enough resistance, they might be able to get some kind of change, but I just didn't expect it to be so soon. I was thinking this was going to be like, it might even take place and almost fail after a season or so of it happening. I thought it would get to that stage. But, I don't want to say they've listened to the fans because I don't really think they have. I think they've just been forced into a decision, but in a way, knowing that if they went ahead with it, it just wouldn't work as opposed to them listening to the fans. I don't really think that's the case. And I also think that UEFA have been able to sort of offer them money which they hadn't been able to before. And they've kind of, they've not come off poorly, let's say. I think, it'd be unfair to say that these clubs are almost doing it just for the fans. I think they have got some kind of financial gain from all this. But at the end of the day, as people were saying, we've got our game back. And the thing that we were so against is disappeared, just as quickly as it came about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about the money there. I think it's highlighted that UEFA have €4 billion that they can, spend basically. So that's a
I didn't
positive.
admit was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we talked about this on the podcast when we were speaking about the Super League before, and we can't be referring to UEFA as the good guys because it's two bad guys here. For me, it's really highlighted the fragility at the top of these big, what we thought were invincible clubs, and how actually the power of fan action isn't, it hasn't dissipated, and it's still something that we can really harness. And I think, this is a milestone. I don't think not just for football, just for any sport really, about how a whole fan base, that's not normally so divided, with club allegiances, can come together and stop something for the greater good. And I really hope now this is the catalyst for the start of, pressure for a 50+1 rule, for maybe wage caps, transfer caps, all this sort of thing to make the game more profitable and sustainable, and secondly, just make it a fairer, more level playing field, really.
Yeah.
Tom, you talked about cynicism there. Let's get on to sort of what next for the Big Six. We'll talk England here. For me personally, I'm looking at points deductions. I'm looking at possible relegation. I'm looking at transfer bans, European bans, an absolute cert. I think you've got to ban them from Europe because they wanted to leave Europe. And like Will said, It isn't like they've caved into the fans, really. It's because their own pride's been hurt, and that's what comes first. But it doesn't look like it's going to be any of that. And for me, this is the worst outcome possible. And unfortunately, it looks like it might happen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your principle, Ed, but I disagree with you a little bit in the sense that this is the worst thing that could have happened. I don't think this is a bad scenario we find ourselves in. I mean, if UEFA were to punish English clubs and ban them from Europe, or at least the greedy six, I don't think it'd really do anything because next season they'd just be back in Europe, or the season after that. So I don't think that does anything. If the Premier League were to give out points deductions, and as it stands, it'd see Arsenal and Tottenham relegated, wouldn't it? If they got, points deduction. Once again, I don't think it'd do anything because them two would just piss the Championship next season, and it removes a lot of sporting competitiveness from England's second tier if you do that. I think it's a real challenge now. What do you do to punish these clubs in a way that isn't harmful for the pyramid? It's a hard one. It's a very hard one. I don't agree with the sentiment that the players and the fans haven't done anything wrong, because look at Wigan.
Exactly.
Season they finished 13th in the Championship, and although it benefited Barnsley, that was literally because of the actions of Stanley Choi, nobody else.
Yeah.
So I don't agree with that sentiment, but I don't agree with yours either. It's a really hard one, and like I said, I think we need to find a solution to this. I don't know what that solution is. Maybe it's an idea of financial punishment. So maybe you put a transfer cap on the greedy six, for example, and say, right, net spend of whatever the average net spend of the Premiership is, you've got to remain below that for the next 3 seasons, which hopefully would allow the Premiership clubs around them to try and get on a level playing field with them, or an equal playing field. But it's very hard. And I said, like, my cynicism, the inner cynic in me is going, the fan power, it's done a lot. The broadcasters who put pressure on them, like Sky and BT, that's done a fair bit. But like you said, that 4 billion euros, what UEFA never admitted to having, has done probably more than the other two factors have. And all we're seeing now is this Swiss model that UEFA agreed to on Monday, I believe, coming in 2024, which still allows for legacy clubs, aka Tottenham and Arsenal, to qualify for the Champions League, even if they didn't do so on footballing merit. So it's not a victory for fans just yet. I think it's the way I'd phrase it is probably, we've won the battle now. Let's go win the war.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to sum it up. Like you say, it's very difficult in what action you take against these clubs, because I think punishing the club as a whole, perhaps you could say, is a little unfair, because I think, we saw with like Liverpool last night, with the team taking a stand on social media. I think it would in a way be harsh to punish the team, because it does sound like a lot of the players were left in the dark about this whole thing, and ultimately it's the players who dream of playing in the Champions League, etc. It's just a financial bonus for the owners. So I think if there's going to be a punishment, for me it has to be financial, whether, like you say, that's sort of transfer caps or whether it's just straight up fines. I think it has to be these owners who have ultimately, put the clubs into this position. I think it's them who have to pay the price.
Yeah, I feel for me personally, fines are ineffectual, and this thing about we can't hold the big six as this sort of gods of English football, but then we're doing it. People are doing it right now, saying, well, you can't punish the fans. I'm sorry, but I'm speaking about Wednesday. We didn't choose for Dave Chansiri to break FFP, and we're being punished for it. Look at, like I said, Wigan, Bolton. The list goes on and on and on of these clubs that, for some reason,
it's a bit different though. I'd say. I mean,
I disagree. Because I understand the sentiment that this was completely out of the realms and out of the sort of hands of the players of the top 6, but so was all these owners' choices at lower down the football pyramid.
But would it not be hypocritical to have protested to keep these clubs in English football to then just boot them out of the leagues into lower leagues? Would that not be, in a way, doing the same thing?
I understand your point there, but for me, I'm obviously booting them down the lower leagues. I'd suggest maybe a 30 points deduction. So it wouldn't be like, you're in League Two sort of thing, because that would be completely out of proportion and ridiculous, quite frankly. But I think for me, it's about sending that real clear message of you don't dare do this again. Okay.
But with the money behind them, I just, like Tom said, I think they'll just piss the league, and they'll just, you're taking opportunities from other championship clubs of getting back up. They'll come straight back up and get into the same position all over again. And for me, there's been no real lasting effect there. Whereas a financial cap of some sort, that's, they have to work with that. When we saw the transfer ban at Chelsea, it didn't destroy the club, but it certainly made them difficult and made them use this young talent, which, if anything, might have been a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, a point deduction is the extreme. Let me make that clear. But for me, on the other side, is a fine, which I feel that's ineffectual. You talked about winning the battle, and now we need to win the war, Tom. The war, winning the war is getting these owners out of the clubs. That's as simple as that, because you get those top 6 out. It's so much easier to implement a 50+1 rule without those top 6. So for me, that's the end goal. Like I said, though, we cannot let this slide. I mean, UEFA, they've said, they welcomed Man City back with open arms, sending out completely the wrong message. I think we can all be in agreement that this is not the last time we will hear of the Super League. It might be the last time we hear of the Super League in this form, but there's no doubt, the Glazers, Kroenke, all of them, there's no doubt they've gone, Perez, he's sat back now. No way Perez has just thought, okay, yeah, I got that one wrong. The guy's got no morals. He's going to be sitting there scheming, thinking, right, plan A didn't work. I've got B, C, D, E, F to go through. Let's just tick them off by one, and in the end, I will get what I want, which is, money at the end of the day.
You bang on with that. I mean, we can see in Joel Glazer's open letter to Manchester United fans, we believe there is still problems with European football, and we will look to change them in whatever way benefits the club best. Now, to me, that sounds like they're still going to be planning for a breakaway league. That's just the way it sounds to me. And you're right, Ed, with Perez. Listen, there's no doubt about it. This wasn't a threat. They were genuinely going to do a Super League. This wasn't to get UEFA to cave in. This time it was genuinely going to happen. But in the process of doing so, Real Madrid's 900 million euros debt could well be cut a third by UEFA. They're not offering financial relief as of yet, but I've got no doubt about it that there's a chance that they will. I do want to go back a little bit, sort of in the conversation in terms of the points deduction argument, and that's these clubs haven't actually done anything that damages English football in any way, apart from the reputation and obviously the 2 days of turmoil with what it caused. Now, you could argue, yes, these plans were announced, but because nothing actually ever went through and there was no financial benefit to them joining the Super League, because it wasn't like JP Morgan gave them the $300 million stimulus on signing the contract. A game would have had to have been played. So you could argue that it was only plans and they should only be punished for these plans, which is probably why I'm more in agreement with Will's point in the sense of it probably should be transfer caps or transfer bans.
Very fair point.
That's my argument on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the quality of lawyer will come in, because, I'm by no means no law expert, but you'd imagine that what that argument about, the legality of their intentions and the certainty of their intentions will come down to that. So, supposed document that Perez keeps banging on about, is it binding, is it not? I mean, he's a barefaced liar, so let's face it, it probably isn't.
Yeah, he is.
And like I said, it's very hard to legally justify a points deduction of such ilk, but this is sort of an emotive reaction, and it's all about deterrence to stop them doing it in the future. The reality is, and I'm more than aware that this is a pipe dream, and that you probably have very little legal grounds to and concrete evidence to support such a claim. That's the issue.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Tom.
Very well.
I mean, when you were saying, Ed, about the likes of Wigan, Bolton, etc., well, I completely understand your point in it's, again, nothing to do with the fans. It's not their fault. The club as a whole there, they, you know, whether it was the owner or whatever, they did something wrong. In this circumstance, while morally it's not looked upon very well at all, the clubs haven't actually done anything wrong here. Like,
I disagree.
But to sort of bring in a political point to this, which I'm sure will probably hit about 5 people who listen to this, but it's like the Cameron and Greensill situation at the minute.
Yeah.
There's no lobbying. There's no lobbying law which says David Cameron can't lobby for Greensill,
Yeah.
and
It's just morally wrong, isn't it?
It's morally incorrect, and ex-prime ministers aren't expected to do things like that. Just as the big six are in a position of power in English football, where we expect them as fans and as and for the owners as custodians of the clubs we love, to always act in the best interest of the fans rather than their own pockets. So that's the problem, isn't it? At what point do you go, we're going to punish you for doing something morally wrong?
Yeah.
And then do you look across English football and go, right, there's a points deduction for Derby. You sold your stadium to yourselves. That's morally incorrect. And it's sad because these clubs need repercussions. What would the word be? The domino effect of this could be huge across Europe. And UEFA aren't going to hand out European bans, sadly. They haven't lobbied so hard for these clubs to come back into the UEFA picture just to say, right, you're not allowed in. It would hurt their product. And sadly, it's all about money with these bureaucratic idiots.
Yeah, but then it comes back to the thing, though, isn't it? They've won. They've won. They haven't won as well as they'd like to, but at the end of the day, they've still won. And
that's the cynic in me.
Well, it's not even the cynic in me. It's just how I truly feel. And this is the thing. I strongly feel on this. You've got to take a hard line. But like I said, they have the best lawyers in the world. So the reality is that it'll all get brushed under a carpet, and they'll go back to bullying the other 14 clubs in the Premier League.
A very big carpet, that, by the way, but I'm sure they'll source one.
Oh, of course. Fan feeling and resentment will not dissipate until those 100%. 6 owners are out of their respective clubs. But in terms of on the pitch, off the pitch, they will go about as normal business resumed, and that's the problem. It cannot be allowed to do that. It might be a bit extreme. You might think, whoa, okay, all these fans are being punished. I'm not being harsh here, but tough shit. Because so many other fans in the English football pyramid have had their owners screw them over against their own will, protest about it against their own will, and the owners continue to proceed with what they're doing, and then, quite rightly, a punishment comes.
That's another question. This is the question I want to pose to you and Will now, which is, can you envisage these owners leaving, the likes of the Glazers, Kroenke and FSG? And B, is it realistic for these owners to leave? I mean, we've already seen a little bit of collateral with Ed Woodward, and there's rumours, isn't there, surrounding Agnelli at Juve. But lads, can you see these owners leaving?
No. I mean, I'll just go first. I think, no, I can't see them leaving. I think the thing with Ed Woodward is, I think this has just opened up. I think what I've read, I personally think he was planning on leaving at the end of the season anyway. And
That's what the rumours are, aren't they?
I think Man United have just used this as oh shit, we need to do something. We'll announce this 4 months earlier. I honestly think that's what that is. I don't think that's any response to this whole situation, because if they were reacting off his behaviour, etc., I think it would have gone a long time ago.
Very true.
And with the other owners, I just can't see him going. These aren't just businessmen. These are multi-billion-pound enterprises. They're not just going to leave because of a bit of controversy from some bloke standing outside Stamford Bridge. I just can't see it happening. I think all these clubs have faced controversy, and they showed no signs of shifting before, and I can't see him moving now.
For me, Abramovich will definitely stay. Obviously, Sheikh Mansour will stay. FSG, I really hope for the people of Liverpool obviously the red half that they leave. But these American owners, they have no shame, as we've learned. Their ego are too big to ever get dented enough. I think it's going to see, it's going to take a lot more fan protests, fan action to see before we start to really see any possible signs of them selling up. And like you said, Wilkie, we've only won a battle, and we're not going to win the war until they go. And if they don't go, then all this was for nothing, in my opinion, because we'll be sat here in 2, 5, 10, 15 years time, and Twitter will have its mad day again, mad 2 days.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what happens. And I think that next time they'll have learnt from this. They'll have got invaluable experience of A, how not to handle it, B, how to go about handling it next time, what worked, what didn't work.
How you get the fans on side.
Yeah. And then there's no stopping it, because football is unsustainable. This hasn't changed. This only exacerbated it, because they're going to get even more funding from UEFA. So it's been even more unsustainable. You know what I mean? It's not like, a fairy godmother's waved a wand and all of a sudden football's fixed again. No.
It'd be very naive to look at it like that.
Yeah, these questions are still there to be answered.
It's necessary evils. Like, we're saying we don't want a Super League. Oh, yeah, but you're going to have to get back into bed with UEFA. Let's just say, allegedly, I don't want to end up on the end of some court case here, but...
Can't they listen, don't worry.
I don't know, there's some litigious people out there. Listen, we might end up on... There's been allegations in the past of corruption, hasn't there, within UEFA?
Really? You'd have never guessed.
And look, let's just say, it's probably a lesser of two evils, but it certainly is two evils, and we're not the type of football fan to go, right, well, that's Super League over. Let's get back to ignoring all these terrible people and terrible job they're doing of running the sport.
I think UEFA are lucky that they hold the most valuable asset in football, which is the Champions League. Because if it wasn't for the Champions League, we would have been UEFA off a long time ago. Because, like you say, there's 100%. Allegedly they're a bit corrupt. But it just so happens that the Champions League is brilliant and fans love it and will continue to love it.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be brilliant though for much longer with the Swiss model. Is it something like 80 games to whittle it down to 16 teams or something?
From what I can gather, each team is guaranteed 10 fixtures.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And if you were to win every Champions League fixture, I think you'd need to win 14 games in the Champions League a season.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
And
I just don't understand.
That's from 8 to 14.
This is, I might be wrong here, but I don't think I've ever really met a football fan who said, I don't like the way the Champions League's run.
No.
I never met
you're
anyone. Right. It always works. Like, I don't understand what's wrong with it at all. I don't understand who's calling for changing the Champions League. And
Glazers, people,
Oh yeah,
money.
Owners.
That's the problem. It's all money, isn't it?
Well,
for me,
if they get more games out of them, that's more TV revenue coming in, and it's as simple as that, isn't it? Like I say, I'm no economist or anything, but the more games to play, the more TV money there is, the more money these clubs are getting, and it's annoying that it's come to a stage where money is the talking factor, but
that's life, unfortunately, isn't
it? We've gone too far. That's not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, if I could redesign the Champions League tomorrow, I'd just make it a completely knockout-based thing, because
you'd put Wednesday in it.
I mean, come on. Of course, we'd have to be there, but no. It's in all seriousness, because the knockout stage is when it gets really interesting, and the European competitions are there for one purpose in the eyes of fans, and that's to provide top quality entertainment. And the games in the Champions League are some of the best games football's ever experienced. Even in just the past 5 years, unbelievable games. Yeah. And the knockout, what gives that edge is the knockout aspect of it. Now, of course, it's never going to happen, because if you go out first round, and you're a big club, A, you've been humiliated, and B, you've missed out on loads of money. But from a fan's perspective, that'll be what I would do. And just something I do want to say is I think it was Rory Jennings tweeted yesterday. Just to remind you all, Chelsea fans have just saved football, and it really boiled my piss. I'm not gonna lie.
Because, you're right.
No, you haven't. It just happened to be you that was playing that night. Liverpool and Leeds fans protested the night before. It just happened to be you. Just because you got Thogden there, don't try and turn this into something it's not. Okay.
This is the thing. Football fans can only be united for so long, and you just knew this was going to happen. You knew the set of fans that would be the straw that broke the camel's back would go, it was all us. Yeah, it was always boys. It was all the Chelsea. We stopped the Super League. Yeah,
well, I like how it went from all football fans uniting to 10 minutes later. Well, Chelsea we saved it, didn't we? But I'm sorry.
Chelsea saved it. If you're a director at one of these clubs or an owner, that's got that's a little fly in the water.
You really think the FSG lads were sat there thinking, shit, Dogden's outside Stamford Bridge, lads.
Blocking the bus.
Considering the announcement came out during the protests, this isn't an announcement that would have been rattled off in 10 minutes. This would have took hours, beforehand. So, it's Chelsea. The Chelsea fans, aren't they? So, they're deluded for a start, and they've got this false sense of entitlement. But yeah, that was just it was a momentous day for football, the day where everyone had come together.
Yeah.
And then you had Chelsea fans trying to make it all about them.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking what they were doing. I think
not all. It's fair play to them, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant. But
at the end of the day, these clubs haven't sat there and gone, the fans are a bit upset, let's scrap it. They've scrapped it because UEFA have said, look, we can offer you a similar financial gain by sticking with us, and they've gone, well, all right, we'll do that then.
Yeah.
Just on the fickleness of football fans in general, I saw the limbs of when it was announced. That was almost like they were celebrating their clubs pulling out. This shouldn't have been a celebration. It should have been a condemnation.
Exactly.
And secondly on that, these fans who were saying Glazers out, these fans were saying Kroenke out, these fans were saying FSG out. When Liverpool in the summer go out, and maybe, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if Liverpool in the summer go sign Mbappe, and Man United go out and sign Jadon Sancho, and Arsenal go out and sign Jack Grealish, it'll all be forgotten.
It's the same thing with Manchester City. If they weren't taken over, they would probably be fighting for lives somewhere in the Premier League, if not in the Championship. It's all good wanting money in football when it's working for you, when you're buying all these good players. But as soon as the billionaires start trying to make more money for themselves, and you go, whoa, you can't do that. That football's got to a stage where they are in full control, and you've almost got to accept that. And we're lucky that this time we've got away with it.
Yeah. I mean, you highlighted the issue there.
Next time Sky will have a broadcasting deal set up before it's announced, and Sky won't be able to protest against it as vocally because we'll be the ones making money.
Yeah, I mean, two things. Number one, Will, you highlighted the issue there. We've got to accept that these people are in sole charge. You're completely right there, but we don't have to, and this is why the 50+1 rule. I know I keep banging on about it, but we've got to an irreversible stage now where fans of the top 6 clubs, quite rightly and fairly, expect a level of talent and a level of success that's incompatible incompatible with having different owners, if you get what I mean. If they were to have fan ownership, they would have to, in my opinion, reduce their expectations from their club, and that would take a hit of pride. And I'm not sure half of them are actually willing to do that in the long run. And
100%.
Secondly, think about Sky. I mean, there are a lot of variables, that had things gone differently over the past couple of days, we would be sat here and the European Super League would be going ahead. And you hit the nail on the head with the broadcasting one. In my opinion, the European Super League dropped a real clanger not going after Sky and BT and going after DAZN and stuff, because that was a complete abandonment of European football, because Sky is the place for football and is shown all over Europe and all over the world, really. DAZN, I don't know one person who has DAZN.
Well, it's an American thing, isn't it? It's not really It's a UK-based company that doesn't operate in the UK, which is a bit odd, but that's because Sky and BT dominate the market. So they've been clever and thought, well, there's no point trying to fight with these, we'll go elsewhere. and they've been successful. And like you say, Super League went wrong not getting Sky or BT on side because, you know, just with that one Monday Night Football show showed how much influence someone like Sky has.
Yeah, and you're right, both of you. And with the whole situation with the broadcasting rights, DAZN, I'm sorry, we might have escaped DAZN this time, but DAZN are going to be taking over in the UK.
Oh,
I mean,
they will.
Matchroom's contract with Sky is up soon, so that'll be the Matchroom stable moving over to DAZN, which in layman's terms is, you know, all of Eddie Hearn's fighters. And then we will see. I think next time the Premiership broadcasting rights are up, I think DAZN will get a third of them. And
Rise
we'll
of
see the
Amazon as
same.
well. Rise of
Yeah,
Amazon, another
see the same with
American-based
the
company.
Champions League. And I think this whole situation, as much as, like I said, we might have won one battle, there's plenty more to come in football. And I'm sorry, but fan power's huge. You can never underestimate fan power. But there's only so much fan power in the world, and at what point do we? There's just certain things that have happened and too far gone. And as much as I'd love to see the Glazers driven out of Manchester United and Kroenke and his son driven out of Arsenal and John W. Henry driven out of Anfield, it love it to happen, but I just can't see it. There's only there's probably 6 or 7 people in the world who can afford to buy Manchester United.
Yeah.
So how can we expect that one major event's going to drive these lunatics out of football? Glazers have never put a penny into Manchester United. The amount of money they make out of that club in dividends is obscene. When you look at the amount of debt the club's in.
Yeah.
So to think that these people have a moral compass is delusional.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, like I say, we mentioned it earlier on. I think all three of us agreed on the fact that, you know, football fans as a whole, we can't have it both ways. We can't, you know, firstly, obviously not a fan of one of the big 6 teams, but you can't be a fan of a big 6 team and say, well, I want so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so in this transfer window, spending hundreds of millions, and then at the same time go, well, what's that? You want to move somewhere where you make more money? Whoa, no, thank you. Like, we've got to a stage where you've got to make compromises because, you know, if it stays as it is, it's not going to work. Put it that way. And so we're either going to see a move to a separate league like we nearly have done, and then you'll get all the best players you want, or you'll stick in the leagues you are, but these players, you know, they're demanding money, aren't they? And I think the teams who have gone with the 50+1 rule, while it does work, these clubs financially can't afford the big. Obviously they've got some very big players, but the likes of Haaland, etc., they're looking to go elsewhere. Why? Because they're going to get more money. They get more money because these owners have got the money to give them.
Yeah.
And like I said, that it's all about sustainability, isn't it? And if you're demanding hundreds of millions of pounds worth of signings to be sustainable, you need hundreds of millions of pounds worth of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the Super League was set to happen. And that's why these clubs are in so much debt. I mean, with the exception of Manchester United, who were in debt because they were bought by a leveraged buyout, Barcelona are in ridiculous amounts of debt. And it's because they pay Lionel Messi 1.3 million euros a week. It's because they pay Antoine Griezmann £600,000 a week, whilst they paid like 150 million euros for his signature. And he said, Will, at how highly do you value signing the best players in the world compared to how highly do you value your club being run by good people?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most interesting thing for me. Is people may say, we want the 50+1 rule, okay, but that means that whoever you own in the club with will then look at the fans and go, well, we want 50+1% of the transfer fee for this player.
Yeah.
It's an interesting situation. Like I said right at the very top of the podcast, I'm interested to see how this is going to unfold. I'd like to think it's going to be, you know, the start of great change, but
yeah. I mean, I think anyone who's in these billions, you have to realise to get to where they've got to, you've got to be ruthless, and they're not going to stop being ruthless. That's just how the world works. And so, like you said, Tom, they're not going to be, they're not going to feel sorry for us because they couldn't really give a shit. They're just interested in making money because that's just who they are, and fair enough to them. That as much as I hate it, that's what's got them where they are, is how ruthless they are, and they'll continue doing that. They're not going to start thinking, well, I do value these lot playing Stoke. That's not how they think. They think in a business way, and will continue to do that.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to say on this, Ed? Because there's a final question I'd really like to ask you all.
Not really. Just adding on your point about sort of accepting quality of player over quality of ownership. I think, like every fan, a lot of top six fans are fickle, and what they see will be the players on the pitch. They won't see what goes on in the boardroom, what goes on, behind closed doors, and therefore they're going to value the players and the performance on the pitch over their ownership at the end of the day.
So the final question I want to ask you all, which is probably, it's sort of European Super League, sort of not. Maybe they'll go down as a moment in history, but I'd like each one of us to make 3 predictions about the future of football in the next 10 years. So we'll start off with you, Ed.
Okay. Number 1, there will be another threat of a breakaway. Number 2, that breakaway will happen. I see a breakaway. I just think that'll happen. And I really want the 50+1 rule to come in, but I think now Boris has got his PR out the way, the chances of that happening are unfortunately very slim. So number 3, I think the Glazers will leave Manchester United in the next 10 years.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting. Well,
I guess I reflect Ed's opinion that there will be at least another attempt of doing this, and if done better, I would say, than this time, getting broadcast companies on board, etc. I think I agree with Ed, it'll happen. Personally, I don't see any of the owners shifting anytime soon. CEOs, etc., chairmen may come and go, but the actual owners, I don't think will leave anytime soon. How many have I named there? Is that 2 or 3? I don't even know.
2 if we can't. Let's say first one there'll be another threat. 2 the owners will still be here. Number 3.
Yeah. So I would say there's just going to be a change in our kind of pyramid system. Whether that's because of teams leaving or just in general, the pyramid system as we know it now, and love it, most would say, I think that'll change.
Yeah. My 3, my first one's quite similar to Will's. I think the Football League will expand. Just looking at the situation at National League level now, let's just say it seems acrimonious at best at boardroom level. So I think with the advent of huge clubs for that level anyway, in the likes of Notts County, Wrexham being taken over by Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, I think we'll see the Football League grow. Now, whether that's the 5th division, but being in the Football League, or maybe 26 team divisions, I don't know. We'll see. My second prediction is that the Champions League will be overhauled again. Obviously, we'll have the Swiss model in 2024, but I think it'll get bigger, even more grotesque, and will prevent a European Super League, but we'll technically really have a European Super League in all but name. And my third point, which is probably my most it's more of a bet than a prediction, but that's what a bet is. But anyway, move past that. My third prediction is that a team that's currently playing beneath the Premier League will make it to the Champions League in the next 10 years, which will prove that there is still some meritocracy in English football.
I completely agree with that. I do see Sheffield Wednesday in the Champions League in 10 years' time, to be fair.
See Barnsley in it in 2 years' time, mate. Big Val's taking us. He's taking us all the way.
Hopefully not. No, I agree with you on the expansion of the EFL. By the way, I think that'd be great. But yeah, is that? I think we've covered everything we wanted to cover there.
Good episode.
It's been one of the biggest football stories in decades. This, and it's all moved so fast that it's been a bit hard to keep up with it. But it looks to be settling down before I'm sure we'll see more drama in the future. As ever, thank you very much for listening. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and probably somewhere else. Just I'm sure you'll be able to find us. So thank you very much for listening, and yeah, have a nice day.
Ciao.
Cheers, guys.